Jai Hind children. Let's study about food chain, trophic level and food web. Food chain or who eats whom. See, an ecosystem, as you know, has different types of biotic factors. These biotic factors, as you have studied, are the producers and the consumers. The producers are eaten away by the consumers, which are of different types, such as herbivores, carnivores, etc. The producers form the foundation of the ecosystem. They support the herbivore population, which again supports the carnivores or the omnivores. So, in a nutshell, the food chain actually is a sequence of organisms in a biotic community. So, we can say that it is a series of organisms. You can see here, it is a series of organisms in which one is eaten up by the other. It always starts from the producers. Let's take an example of food chain. Here, see, the grasses are eaten up by the deer. So, grasses are the producers, which can trap the solar energy and convert into chemical energy. The grasses are eaten up by the herbivores, and the herbivores are in turn eaten up by the lion, which are the carnivores. Now, let's see this different types of food chain. Here, this is an example of an forest food chain. Here you can see the trees are there which are eaten up by the deer, and the deer are eaten up by the tigers. So these are the producers and these two are the consumer. The primary consumer, the first consumer is always the herbivore, and the secondary consumer may be the carnivore or the omnivore. The next example is a food chain of a grassland. Here in this one, the grasses are eaten up by the grasshopper. So grasshopper is the primary consumer, which depends on the producers. Now the grasshoppers are eaten up by the frog. The frog is eaten up by the snake, and the snake is eaten up by the eagle. So this is an example of a grassland ecosystem. Another, we are talking about the aquatic food chain. Now you can see here in this aquatic food chain, there are the very small microscopic plants. They are also known as phytoplankton. These are eaten up by the crustacean, or you can say here it is a scorpion, which is eaten by the fish, and the fish is eaten by the crane. Now, you can see here the aquatic food chain may be connected to the terrestrial food chain also. There are decomposers in this ecosystem, different ecosystems. We find the decomposers, but they are not included in the food chain. Why? Because they operate at all the levels of the food chain. So, they are not included in the food chain. So this is an example again of a grassland food chain, and you can see an example of an aquatic food chain. Now what are the things which flows through the food chain? Two things are there which flows through the food chain. First is the energy. How energy? The green plants take the solar energy and convert it into the chemical energy, which flows through the food chain. See, this chemical energy is taken up by the herbivores and which are passed to the carnivores or the omnivores. So, this energy in the food chain gets lost as heat and ultimately flows in the atmosphere. So, we can say that the energy flowing in the ecosystem is in the food chain is unidirectional. It doesn't revert back. So it moves from the solar energy to chemical energy and proceeds through the different levels of the food chain. Whereas another thing which flows in the ecosystem are the nutrient or the matter. It goes from the producer to consumers and are ultimately acted upon by the decomposers. These decomposers, they break down it into inorganic matter and so they again come back to the soil, and from the soil it is again taken up by the plants. So we can say that the matter is recycled or the nutrients in the food chain are recycled. Now let us talk about the trophic level. Trophic level, as you know, is the steps of the food chain. So each step or level of food chain forms a trophic level. The producers are said to be the first one. So they are the producers. So the producers are found in the first trophic level. So grasses, trees, they are the first producers and they are the first trophic level. Then they can fix the solar energy and make it available to the heterotrophs or the consumers. So the primary consumers are in the second trophic level. So second trophic level always contains the herbivores. So the primary consumers, which are the herbivores, are in the second trophic level. The third trophic level, they contain the carnivores or omnivores and they are the secondary consumers. The tertiary consumers are there in the fourth trophic level. They are in the fourth trophic level. So this way, each steps of the food chain, they are said to be trophic level, and the primary trophic level or the first trophic level is always the producers. Now let us talk about the food web. Now, as the energy flows in the food chain, we cannot say that in the trophic level the energy is specified. So the food chains are always interconnected. So many interconnected food chains, they make a food web. See, sometimes a single organisms are eaten up by many. Here, let us take the example of grass. The grass is eaten up by the herbivores. The herbivores may be the rat, herbivores may be the grasshopper, the herbivores may be the rabbit. Now here again, see this, the herbivore, the grasshopper. This grasshopper can be eaten up by rat, the grasshopper can be eaten up by frog, and the frog can be eaten up by the snake, frog can be eaten up by the owl. So we can say that so many food chains are interconnected to each other. This, when the food chain gets interconnected, there is a more stability. So this produces the food chain in the ecosystem, and we find that there is an interaction between the different organisms in the ecosystem. Hope you are now clear about food chain, trophic level and food web. Thank you.